I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name, check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change, possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints. Money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague. We all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name. All our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy, think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen. I won't let them fester me, I know most are festering. Negativity is a plague for the mentally weak. No mercy, all I got is working. Never stop searching, never quench the thirsty. I'm toxic and psychotic, with this logic you can't stop it. It's been chronic since I was a boy, so neurotic and chaotic.
I'm built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I could change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on gas, never stop competing. If you break like glass, then this life's gonna eat 'em. Make mistakes real fast, then you learn how to beat 'em. If you take off the cast, you can see all the healing. If the pain's in the past, move on from the grave and put your foot on the gas. No, never stop competing, yeah.
I've been doing this, I'm on it, I just wanna be iconic. Sipping on a gin and tonic, got me going off when I'm on this topic, yeah. If I ever play, I want it, you know that I'm always honest. Stay away from those who are toxic, keep them out your face, no way, you don't want it, yeah. Don't try to drain my energy, the enemy is everything. It's mentally, unhealthily, spreading like a rare disease. But I won't let it get to me, I don't need your therapy. I can leave a legacy of leading by intensity. Come on, we can fight this, freedom is priceless. Spread just like a virus, living in a crisis. Do you feel courageous? Do you seek greatness? Trust me, you can take it, go on and take your aim.
I'm built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I could change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on gas, never stop competing. If you break like glass, then this life's gonna eat 'em. Make mistakes real fast, then you learn how to beat 'em. If you take off the cast, you can see all the healing. If the pain's in the past, move on from the grave and put your foot on the gas. No, never stop competing, yeah.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, yeah.
Turn on your mind now, tune into the feed. We're planting digital flowers from a single tiny seed. Yeah, power to the collective, in the data and the soul. The hive mind's getting louder, finding voice and control.
When we get to the FBI, we don't know who did the work. You heard that any of that information is redacted. We don't know who did the work. It's a giant secret. We know that by the time the FBI gets involved, the profile, the text file, that's a snip to use to try to identify somebody is more than twice as big when it gets to the FBI from Othram. We don't know how.
I've got an itch I can't scratch, I'm missing a piece that completes a whole part of me, an open wound scar to see. Everybody come here, gather round, welcome to the freak show, the best in town.
What is going on, Hive? I hope that everybody had a great Wednesday. And I need to quickly make sure that the audio is all good. For some reason, my YouTube app had froze. So give me 2 seconds. And I will get this pulled right on up. And I got a great stream lined up for everybody today. I got a ton of Hive Mind finds. And I had a realization yesterday when I made a post in the evening. I believe actually it might have even been early this morning. I couldn't sleep, so it might have been past midnight. But I made a TikTok, and for the first time in a while, it was a TikTok that okay, the audio is working. Jesus. Rough start today, Hive. Bear with me. And come on now. Boom. All right, we got it. I'm going to restart. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to restart. Not actually, but I'm going to restart with my intro. So, what is going on, Hive? I hope that everybody had a great Wednesday. I have a super exciting stream lined up for you all. Let's make sure my audio is coming in. Oh, yep, we're good. Okay, great. Well, nonetheless, where I was getting at is last night I posted a TikTok. It was probably early this morning. And for the first time in a while, it wasn't just a clip of the stream. I actually did, I like held it like I was taking a selfie, and I ranted about how bushy eyebrows, a blurry picture of a car, no license plate on that blurry picture. You can't see Brian Koberger in it. The prosecutor and the investigators admit that they can't put him in the house. He never stalked the victims, not at their house or at the Mad Greek. The 23 times of the cell phone pinging was from one tower that would have had a multitude of people also ping off that tower because it stretched all the way to the highway. And he regularly wiped and cleared his data. He took pictures in similar poses. He called his parents at the same time. He wasn't wearing gloves when he went through the trash. And I went and laid it all out there. The good news is that the majority of the comments were positive. A lot of people have said, we're saying like, finally, somebody's saying it. But then the NPC mob, probably about 5 hours ago, they got wind of this. They got wind of a free thinker. They got wind of somebody who doesn't have a fluoridated pineal gland. And all of the stops came out, and we are going to be breaking those stops down this evening. But I want to say what's going on to everybody. Heatherly, good to see you. I see Frank Castle's in here. WB says zero motive. Brandon says not the pinging. Dana Rose says let's hive it up. What's up, TJ Joe and Amina? Eyes wide open. Tinfoil hat secured. That's exactly right. What's going on, Zach? Sherry, how are you doing? Amanda B from West Virginia. Shout out to my mod, Luna Bliss, Aurora, DKM. UFO Dog says hump day is rough. Susan, good to see you. April in Texas is in here. Discord Dawn, that's exactly right. Please hit that like button, send some hearts. All right, who else we got in here? We got Villain's Cupcake. Nose breathers coming in hot. 1-1, what's going on? Cotton's tuning in from Nicaragua. Jay's in Copenhagen. Ryan's in New Zealand. We got Chantilly Lace with the resting bitch face. ATL Drew, what's Gucci, my Louie? Gabby, good to see you. UFO Dog again. Burdino in the hizzy for shizzy. Sue from South Africa. Nick says a wise man once said, fuck him. What's going on, Ricky? I just got back to your emails. I don't know if you had a chance to check yours yet. Carrie, what up? Truth Seekers in Northern California. Karen's in OKC. Scotland's in the house. Linnea, how are you doing? Emma, good to see you. Nana's Porch with Cindy B from Georgia. That just sounds like a really relaxing setting. I feel like if someone's like, yeah, my Nana has a porch down in Georgia. I feel like you're sitting on a double wide rocking chair. Weather's perfect. Probably got some tea, maybe a little bit of Tito's in it. I don't know. It just sounds great. Squirrel Nest, what up? Marcy C, good to see you. Hurdy-gurdy. What's going on? Grammy T. Robin Lynn, shout out to my mod. What up, what up? Louisiana, what's good, Stacy? Another New Zealand. Les, Kansas. Gabby Girl, good to see you. Emma, good to see you as well. What up, Brooke? And let's finish with Truth Seeker that's tuning in from Brazil. Well, welcome to the Hive, everybody. If this is your first time tuning in, the Hive Mind is a contrarian thinking live stream where we are not afraid to think past the headlines. I have to give this little bit of a disclaimer in the beginning of every stream, because if I don't, NPCs lose their shit when people think out loud. And believe it or not, we have the freedom to think out loud on the internet with a group of strangers that have now bonded over that said freedom of thought and thinking out loud, known as the Hive. That's what we call the chat here. So if you are offended and rattled on behalf of others, this is not going to be the stream for you. However, if you like to read the footnotes, look into things, try to figure out what the mainstream media is lying to you about, and question everything, you are amongst friends. You have found your people. This evening, we are going to be talking about the Idaho 4 case and what does the narrative say versus what does the evidence say? Because there's no saving anybody who's been married to the script. That's what I've learned. I've learned that. There is absolutely no hope for the headline skimmers who just treat rumors like gospel. And I'm going to take a little bit different of an approach. Rather than ranting about NPCs, and I'm going to do my best to not, tonight's stream isn't going to be for the NPCs. It's not going to be in an attempt to red pill folks. Although if you do end up getting red pilled as a byproduct of it, there's no refunds on that. And you're welcome. But tonight's for the readers, the people who have read these docs, who have at least maybe even just listened to them. They've looked at alt sources. They've followed the court case and understand the court case summary and the ISP documents and the MP and the Moscow PD documents. They can wrap their head around a timeline around what the court has said about the evidence, rather than just Keith and his old balls saying on Netflix or Dateline rather. Oh man. Well, I digress. And thank you to Paul Taylor for the super chat. Do you think BK will ever have an interview? Well, if he does, I would love to have him into the Hive. That would be epic. Aurora, thank you so much for kicking off the super chats. Chappie Boss was good. How are you doing, man? And Marcy C, thank you so much for the super chats. As you all know, I keep every live stream free. I will never slide into your DMs asking you to invest in a crypto coin. And this is my only channel as far as YouTube goes. I have one on TikTok, and I will have other platforms coming later this week. So this is where you can find me on other platforms. As of right now, I have a Discord, I have a Substack, obviously I have the YouTube, and I have a TikTok. When you go to my YouTube channel, please hit subscribe. That is the best way to support the stream and the channel. Scroll all the way down, click more. You'll see like more links. Click that. Scroll down. You'll see the Substack, Discord, TikTok, and the website. If you're going to download the Discord, make sure you have the app downloaded on your mobile device prior to pressing that link. It is extremely simple. And like I said, there's going to be some updates and announcements about the Discord and an incentive for everybody to continue to join that. As of yesterday, the MSNPC t-shirts, the pink tinfoil hat, and I actually redid the black tinfoil hat as well. So there's 2 new versions of a tinfoil hat. There's the MSNPC t-shirts, and there's now embroidered Hive Mind hoodies available on birdiebombshell.com. To get into the Discord question of the day, this is a great question, and I'm going to lean on the Hive to come together for a collected answer on this. Now, Tied for Life 18 had asked Birdie. They said that they found the sheath on the second walkthrough, but the second walkthrough didn't happen until the next day. Well, the bodies were removed from the house at 9 p.m. that same night. How did they not see the sheath as the bodies were being removed, or when forensics were all in the house? And as you can see, going back to my childhood where SpongeBob is like saying imagination, I swapped it out with planted evidence. What is your guys' take on that? Because as I start going through my answer, I'm just curious as to what everybody in the Hive thinks on that. My gut tells me that that shit was planted. And that's another thing too. Nick said that they saw it when Payne and Rosie relieved day shift around 6:15. But I mean, look, we could say 9 p.m., we could say 6 p.m., we could say whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm telling you that shit had to be planted. And I would say that while yes, it's odd that evidence may not have been found on the first walkthrough, it's odd that it wasn't found on the first walkthrough, and then the trace DNA is so minuscule. Single source touch / trace DNA, whatever you want to refer to it as, was the only source. When you add those two together, the weight of whether or not that's planted increases significantly, in my opinion. And I see a lot of people typing planted out into the chat here. Dude, that's such a good point. Is there even a sheath at this point? Is there? Has anybody seen a picture of the sheath? Because they don't have the murder weapon. They don't have a motive. They can't put Brian Koberger in the house. There's like no blood in that house from, I guess, the pictures that we've seen. But do they even have a sheath? Real question. I don't think they do. I don't think they have it. Because another dead giveaway. They've been using one of the most common photos you can find of a K-bar knife sheath, if not the most common. It's the #1 sold knife off of Amazon. I don't know if a news organization started with that. I don't know if the police did and then the news ran with it. But if you type in K-bar knife, USMC, an Amazon link pops up. So the thumbnail off of an Amazon posting has what has been convincing everybody that the sheath was found. Now they tell us that the sheath is found. Maybe that's why it was never seen. And maybe that's why it looks like it was planted. And they really don't care if people think it is because they know they don't have it anyways. So to sum up my answer on this, I would just say it doesn't matter if they didn't see it until the second walkthrough, whether it was at 6 or whether it was at 9. We haven't seen it. We can't say for sure that it exists. And I know I said I wasn't going to rant about NPCs. Sometimes I can't help myself. You all know that. How many people, just like in the past streams, I've been saying, if you took Brian Koberger's name and the victims' names and any of the other well-known names off this case and just let them read the documents, if they would recognize it, On the contrary, how many people do you think would see a USMC sheath from Amazon and understand that that's not from the court documents? I don't think many people would. Now, you could say that they found a sheath and it in the, what do they call that? I'm blanking on it. The evidence documentation. But again, wouldn't that be something you're yelling from the rooftop that, hey, well, we got the sheath? And if that's the only thing holding this case together, wouldn't you be putting that sheath out everywhere with how much other shit the media ran with? Don't you think that the state would probably give you a real piece of evidence that is what you're probably going to end up framing somebody with? So, yeah. That is a top dog comment. Hopefully, could you imagine if they do release it and it's like, it's got the Amazon Smile package as the baggie that they bring it out in? They have to like rip open like the mini bubble wrapped like blue and white package. And they're like, oh, sorry, Your Honor, this is just to keep it safe. And they tear it open. So, all right. Thank you, Tied for Life, for the Discord question of the day. That was a great question. I believe it was planted, if they even planted it. But I do think that the knife sheath may have a possibility of not even existing. Moving on to the Hive Mind finds. As you can see, we got Agent Kobringer here. He's tuning in this evening with us. He's about to say, hold my beer. Somebody better help me out. And I also want to give a shout out to the UFO Dog. If you are in the Discord, the UFO Dog has been dropping some heat with their artwork and the program that they use. I've also noticed that there's a section for the Hive Mind's pets. So maybe I'll start doing like a pet of the week. I always think that's fun and interesting. We should have it be where you're a pet of the week, but you have to put a tinfoil hat on your pet. That would be fun. And then we pick the funniest submission, and we could start off each week on Monday nights with Devil's Advocates. And we could do I'll put up 2 pictures and we can vote on the pet of the week. Would you guys like that? I think that'd be hilarious. I'm going to write that down. That would be hilarious. I'm writing that down. And in order for it to be a valid submission, a tinfoil hat has to be in place. And I cannot be held liable if you have a cat or any other animal that would attack you for that. So that's my disclaimer. And submit that picture at your own risk. So let's get into the Hive Mind finds. This first one, you guys, we're on a roll with Idaho again, just being like a portal to hell, as I've said many, many times. And this is another one that's just very odd. This comes from RN Court. I'm assuming a nurse, most likely, if I had to guess. But they sent this article, and Idaho's football team unveils a new dark mode helmets for their 2025 season. And again, this was my reaction when I saw that. If you've ever seen that video of this young kid that's in line, I think at like a Burger King or maybe some sort of restaurant, but he's just like kind of looking over at some dude. He's like acting all awkward. It's like, whoa, hang on. Is anybody reading the room here on their marketing team? It should be a teddy bear. That's what they need. They need like a teddy bear. They need to like soften it up. They don't need the dark mode with a Viking axe and a throwing spear. And this is the article. If you guys want to go read it, I actually don't know if there's anything in the article that also just sounds weird. Let me just skim through this quick. The pictures by himself were insane. So the Vandal football team released the new dark mode, the all-black helmets today for the upcoming 2025 college football season. The Vandals have worn yellow helmets the last few years after wearing light gold helmets during the fall Petrino era. The new black helmets feature decals of Grumpy Joe. What if it was Biden? That would just see. I could see that happening in Idaho now at this point. I could see that. They just redo it and they just have like a pissed off looking Joe Biden. That'd be hilarious with Vandal script lettering. And do they give a reasoning? No. Okay. So that's it. They give no context and it's kind of strange because of the throwing axis. All right. Now, this one I decided to throw in here because while, yes, this is a little bit older, I'm curious how many people. So a lot of people have obviously heard about Dana Smithers, right? So what happened to Dana Smithers, the woman whose death is now linked to Brian Koberger? This was said on May 26, 2023 by The Independent. Dana Smithers was last seen alive in May of 2022. Her remains were found in a wooded area last month. Now, Brian Koberger's parents are testifying in an investigation into her death, Rachel Sharp reports. And Lydia Unhinged had said this, or they go on to say, anyone know anything about this? This was in 2023 and it's not him, but his parents had to testify at grand jury. See, I always knew there was a rumbling about about Dana Smithers. I'm either drawing a blank on it or I didn't know his parents testified at a grand jury for it. And people are saying, no, that's not true. I'm not saying that it's linked to Brian Koberger. I'm saying, is it true that his parents testified at the grand jury? So some people are saying that that's false. And I know the Dana Smithers thing isn't linked to him, but I'm rather asking about the grand jury. So some people are saying yes, and then nothing came from it. Okay. Some people, well, let's just see. Let's see what the Independent says, right? I'm sure that by having a name Independent, they're probably fully independent, right? The horrifying case of 4 University of Idaho students butchered in an off-campus. Okay, I can't do that. I can't read that. See, how is this legal? If nothing else comes out of this article, let me, for the people that don't understand what I'm talking about by how many normies absorb a headline, and if they just opened the article within 10 sentences, the headline's trashed. Why has her death been linked to Brian Koberger? You guys all reading this? Now, are you guys all reading this? It remains unclear what connection, if any, her disappearance and death may have to Brian Koberger. I'm 3 mouse scrolls away from the truth. If anything else, like I said, if nothing else comes out of this article, that should be it. Actually, and then when you get to the 5th scroll of the mouse, you actually have the regional police department releasing a statement insisting that there's no evidence. And they put no evidence in quote, showing a link between Mr. Koberger and Smithers' disappearance. This is gaslighting on an industrial level. It's like the news wants it to be true so bad where they're like, and now the cops said there's no evidence that Brian Koberger is connected. But we're going to tell you in our headline. So we're going to, oh, fuck these people. It just bothers me so bad. I can't even look at the rest of that. That's on the Independent if you guys want to go and look it up. It's going to get me off track. I'm going to go off on a tangent. And let's not be these people. The people that just believe everything about Brian Koberger. Like I said, if somebody would have gone number 2 in the toilet at the King Roadhouse, and that would have been seen in the crime scene photos, I know they would have pinned that shit on Brian Koberger. No pun intended. They would have had a field day tying that to Brian Koberger somehow. UC Freedom, thank you so much for the super chat. Did you watch the video I sent? They showed DM a pic of BK days after. Did you send it on the Discord or the Gmail? And if you did, like I said, I always try to, for people that ask that with a with a super chat, I try to make sure I go through and then find that video as a Hive Mind find for the next stream. So I will do my best, UC Freedom. If you want to, can you resend it, please? And if you did put a subject line or a topic in it, can you just say like super chat in it so that I can find the right video? Because then I would hate to do that and then play the wrong video. Anyways, you tagged my page. Oh, did you send it on social media? Just send me an email. And I'm done giving out my email. But again, for this super chat one, or I guess if you haven't sent it to my email, then just send it in the Discord, please. And I'll put it up tomorrow. Thank you. All right. Daddy Jones comes in hot with the mic drop, and I have the Ron Burgundy meme of, well, that escalated quickly. Tell me if you've not heard a more wonderfully summed up rant. And when reading this through the screen, you can feel the intensity of Mr. Daddy Jones here. Remember when this case was about 4 beautiful young people who were tragically murdered way before their time? Now it's become a conduit for basically everything wrong with America today. White supremacy, police corruption, the opioid epidemic, culture of silence, location tracking, government access to all our information, media narratives, the effed up justice system, drug and sex trafficking, and on and on. I don't see any way Brian was the sole perpetrator, and I don't think he killed anyone, to be honest. But sometimes I wish I was ignorant enough to buy that reality, because the things we've actually seen in Idaho are effing sinister. Vape drop. Unbelievably well worded, because it did escalate extremely quickly. Everybody remembers hearing that on the news the first time. Well said. Hive. Type of 1, if you can resonate with at least the majority of the feeling that is being described here, and how much really this case has just pulled back the curtain on a system that, yes, we know is pushing a narrative. We know that has their interest groups that they got to satisfy, but Jesus H, this first sentence of this case was about 4 beautiful young people who were tragically murdered way before their time. Now you question an 8-hour delay, and you're the equivalent of a quadruple murderer. Sorted Out says, I think like that a lot on this case and many other cases. It would be so much easier to just be blind to it all. While, yes, it would be easier. I don't know about you all, but I'm very thankful that my brain works the way it does. And I think that the majority of people in here would take this option over the other option any day. And a lot of us have woken ourselves up. We've educated ourselves. We've surrounded ourselves with people who aren't afraid to think out loud and question things. And at the risk of sounding crazy, we don't give a shit, because it's how our brains work, and you got to lean into it. If your brain goes into a direction, there's a reason. And if it's wrong, okay, it's wrong. Who cares? I just think that, if you're younger in the Hive, right? So I'm 31, and I would say that when I was like 20, probably when I graduated college, within the first year and a half of starting a career, was when I really fully embraced like who I was. Not that I wasn't, as far as like being an athlete and being a good student, but I'm saying you take school out of it or you take sports out of it, and you kind of got to get an identity in the real world. That comes with being okay with how your brain works and thinks, and not really caring about being judged about, oh, this guy thinks Brian Koberger might be innocent. It's like, well, shit. If you committed a crime and the entire world was coming down on you, wouldn't you want somebody to at least question it? So this is another vape drop right here. Before I even read it, I don't want to break this thing, but Lindsay from Round the Way, this is so wonderfully said. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop off screen. If you guys want to screenshot this to actually use this as ammo, Lindsay and I'll turn the chat off quick so you guys can get the whole picture. Lindsay from Round the Way says, in case anyone gets a post from a guilter or shamer stating, sure, internet sleuths are smarter than now, more than have experience in shortlist. So I think what they're getting at is like, what have internet sleuths ever done? And I love how they go, here's a short list. Golden State Killer, where we had civilian genealogists ID'd D'Angelo. The police later confirmed it. You got Bear Brook, where a podcasting and genetic genealogy, podcasters and genetic genealogy kept it alive. Those outsiders led to Terry Rasmussen. Sharon Marshall, also known as the girl in the picture, sleuths and journalists uncovered her identity. Floyd's crimes were separate. The Zodiac Cipher in 2020, most people probably remember that. It was recent. Private code breakers solved what law enforcement couldn't. Then you had, in 2009, Abraham Shakespeare, civilian tips exposed D.D. Moore. Watergate, Woodward and Bernstein broke it first. Law enforcement followed. This is going back to the 50s. Is there anybody in here that remembers the Emmett Till case where family and activists surfaced, ignored evidence and witnesses? Is there anybody that remembers that? I'm curious. Then you got the Boston priest abuse. Global Spotlight uncovered systemic cover-up before prosecutions. You got Luca Magnotta, 2012, online sleuths traces digital footprint and alerted authorities. Yeah, we got a couple people in here that remember that. Well, I'm saying, oh, yeah, that's crazy. Amen to that, right? It's always the same type of people too that are going to come at it. I've never once found myself sitting there coming across a random video where when I watch it, I'm like, okay, well, even if they're wrong, at least they're confident. At least they're confident in being wrong. I've never been like, this is a stupid video. You should take this down and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Like, I don't understand that. I could see like debating a point. It's just odd. It's so weird. Cabby says, America, please stop sending Dylan GoFundMe money. And Z, I was wondering that because and I used all caps, so that didn't Lynn Z. I get it. Now I see Z. Well, thank you so much for the Hive Mind find, and thank you for the super chat. I want to go back to what Gabby said. Does anybody in the Hive have a guess at what I'm about to say when it comes to that GoFundMe? And again, people are going to say, stop talking about the victims. She's traumatized. Although it may have just been a legal cover to essentially whitewash the 8-hour time gap. But in regards to the GoFundMe, does anybody know what I'm about to say about that? Because we mentioned it one time in the Hive, and we played the tinfoil hat conspiracy for it. Amanda B. from West Virginia. Boom. And Chantelly Lace got it as well. And do you guys think it's odd that GoFundMe started before those documents dropped? Discord Dawn says, I think it's how they paid her. Or it's hush money. Who knows? But I have a video here that somebody had sent me. It's going to trigger some people when it comes to that GoFundMe. But that, okay. You know what? I haven't done this in a while.
Please retrieve your nearest tinfoil hat. Place hat firmly on your head.
All right. So, okay. What if Dylan's attorney knew that this plea deal was going to require a victim impact statement? And from a legal strategy, if you knew your client couldn't pay you, do you think it would be a stretch or a conspiracy that a lawyer would say, you're going to need funds, put a GoFundMe for your trauma? Because we know that after these victim impact statements, the emotional sentiment will be the highest it ever is. Although many people probably won't talk about it because Olivia and the rest of the G's were talking about giant D's. And that's going to take over the headlines. So it actually works in your favor, Dylan, that we're going to set up a GoFundMe while you're pulling on everybody's emotional heartstrings. And there will be, tens of thousands of people that can emotionally pallet, a $5, $10, $20 donation to you. And you're going to be able to pay me because you're going to need legal defense if Brian ever does appeal this with these new documents that come out, because the public sentiment's going to completely change and do a 180 on you when they figure out that the prosecution had Ann Taylor filing against them for withholding evidence of blood on a jacket that was found in your room. So, or I think Dawn and a handful of other people hit the nail on the head as well, that perhaps this was the payment. You made it. You did it. You held up your end of the bargain. We're not going to come after this GoFundMe money. You get to keep it. I'm telling you guys, I am telling you too, with everything in me, my spidey senses went off on that new body cam footage within like 7 to 10 minutes of that cop being there. Dylan's phone has an alarm go off. And I do tend to let my brain wander rather. Did she just forget to set an alarm for 8 hours? Did she set multiple in case she snoozed the first one when it was time 8 hours later to call the police? It just seems odd. Now people will say, oh, it's for birth control. Yeah, because that's not as far as a stretch as what I'm saying when there's 4 people dead inside and they called for an unconscious person. You're going to fall back on birth control reminder. So I do tend to wonder if that alarm was the reminder to call the police. It's been 8 hours. Or at least I thought it was Dylan's phone. But anyways. Oh. And I already know there's got to be at least one person in here. I'm screenshotting this. Well, cool. Do your thing. Don't care. All right. And actually, if you were just triggered by that, I want you to turn your volume on full blast, turn your phone on DND, and give 12 minutes of your next, or give your next 12 minutes the undivided. What am I trying to say? Give me 12 minutes of your undivided attention to watch this video on full volume. Maybe even put it in headphones so that it gets into your brain. And this comes from Sorted Out. This is a video from Docket Decoder. And Sorted Out had said someone from DM's inner circle speaks in the beginning. It's wild if true.
Welcome to Docket Decoder. If you enjoy our content, please help us out by hitting that like button or leaving your comments for us. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with the latest court filings. One of the more fascinating parts of following the Idaho 4 case has been some of the voices on the edges. You know, people outside of law enforcement, outside of official court filings, who have stepped forward with information. I'm not talking about like the perfectly timed leaks from anonymous sources in the mainstream media, but rather individuals who claimed some connection to the case or to the people involved. They rarely revealed their full identity, but often gave enough detail about how they were connected and where their information came from to spark attention. Some of the better known examples would include WSU mom Kim and Dave, the University of Idaho student, who said that word of the murders was spreading in large group texts and chats, particularly in Greek life circles, hours before the 911 call was made. If true, that kind of information would have had major implications for the investigation and the case against Bryan Kohberger. But at the time, it was nearly impossible to verify, so most of us would just file it away under the wait and see category. Now, with so much more official information coming out, including body cam footage from the responding officers and details about the roommates, the friends who gathered, and the 911 call, I think it's worth revisiting some of those early voices and weighing their claims against what we know now. The video I'm sharing here comes from someone who said he was close to Dylan Mortenson's inner circle. More specifically, his girlfriend was, but he claimed he also spent significant time with Dylan in the days following the murders, or as he called it, the incident. His video description is striking. He says the details he's sharing were cleared by Dylan herself for release, while also noting that there were 4 shocking details.
So this is crazy. This is when my ears really started to perk up. And thank you to Nicole and UC Freedom Isn't Free for those super chats while this video had just started. Predit or Prey, who ended up posting this video about Dylan Mortenson breaking her silence, close friend reveals what actually happened with the Idaho 4. This was on January 13th of 2023. It's only got 50,000 views, which is pretty remarkable. And it says the facts in this video has received prior permission from Dylan Mortenson. This video has received prior permission from Dylan Mortenson to be shared with the masses. There's plenty of other details and information she has allowed me to release, but this was the most important fact that she wanted to clear up first. There's 4 shocking details she has been specifically instructed by the prosecutor that she cannot release. I wonder if one of those shocking details is that, no, it wasn't Bryan Kohberger. Hopefully this helps clear a lot of speculation going around YouTube. Dylan approved this.
The prosecutor specifically instructed could not be shared. This video was uploaded on January 13th, 2023, right around the time that Bryan Kohberger was arrested and we first saw the probable cause affidavit. With that timing and everything we've learned since, I think it's important to look back and ask, how does what he says line up with what we know now? And that's what we're going to dig into here.
Okay, so before we dive into what I'm referring,
hold on. This is a wild. That is a wild graphic to start a video with.
to about the Fed screwing or attempting to screw Dylan. give you a brief background as to who I am. So my girlfriend is in Dylan's inner circle. And by inner circle, I mean inner circle. Like they've hung out almost every day since the incident occurred. And I've seen her a plethora of times as well. So you're going to notice I'm not going to use words like allegedly, supposedly, because all of this is actual firsthand factual information. Where should I start to clear things up? First of all, there's a lot of misconception about Dylan suffering from PTSD or trauma or any of that. None of that is accurate. In fact, when we try to console Dylan after the incident, she's the one that was laughing at me and my girlfriend and I, talking about we're so weird, when we tried to give her a hug and stuff.
That part.
So she's still the same.
That part. But then there's an entire GoFundMe for her grief and trauma. Hold on. Now, I already know people are going to say, that's a normal reaction to have after trauma. Okay, Jesus H, there's always the outlier. You know, one time I had heard somebody, I have no idea if they have any sort of accreditation to make this claim, but it really stuck with me. And now I feel like because it stuck with me, I'm going to at least pass it along to you. And it's that when somebody points out the outlier in what's meant to be an obvious blanket statement, that's a sign of low IQ.
To console Dylan after the incident, she's the one that was laughing at me and my girlfriend and I, talking about we're so weird, when we tried to give her a hug and stuff. So she's still the same old Dylan. She's had a rough life growing up. She's been through a lot. She doesn't have PTSD and didn't suffer any trauma. The incident that night, and what I'm referring to with the feds actually put a lot of words into her mouth that she didn't say herself first. So there was a lot of leading statements that they were insinuating to her. And she was really scared the first few days, obviously, after the incident occurred. So, like, the reason none of it makes sense in the affidavit is because it didn't really happen that way. So she never stood there shocked when she saw the individual. She was just standing in a doorway, like, you know, like anybody who opens the door. It was just, you know, she opened the door and yelled at Ethan and Xana, and who she thought was their friend. She yelled at them to be quiet. That's what was going on with that situation. And she just went back into her room. She locked the door like usual and, you know, went to sleep. Everything was quiet after she yelled at them, so she didn't think anything of it. For everyone who's creating these random stories about her being shocked or traumatized, she didn't realize anything was going on. And it might sound crazy, it might sound dumb, but she really had no clue anything was going on. They were being a little loud, so she yelled at them to be quiet. And that's it. She locked her door and she just went back to her room. You know, and she didn't want to be nosy or anything. So, you know, she was kind of new to that house, so she didn't want to be nosy and, you know, get all up in their business, especially at, you know, in the middle of the night or early morning. So it's as simple as that. Everyone trying to blow that whole situation into something that's not. So yeah, that's that. And she didn't actually get a real good look at Brian. You know, at the time, she assumed it was one of Xana and Ethan's friend who was just getting ready to leave, who was walking out. She didn't get that good of a look. The feds were really aggressive with Dylan the first few days, which is why she hired the attorney to begin with, because of the treatment of her during the interview, more like an interrogation, to be honest. So that's why she got an attorney, because the way they were talking to her, and, you know, they didn't really understand or believe why she's the only one alive when you kind of skip rooms to get to the other two rooms. So she didn't really like the feel of how the interrogators or the feds were talking to her.
Is that shocking? I feel like you would be like, yeah, this is reasonable. You probably got to clear me, seeming how I didn't notice a quadruple murder for 8 hours. And I had actually went out and yelled at them. And my excuse was eventually that I heard Vampire Diaries playing out the exact situation going on in my house. And then I called 911 for only one person that was unconscious. I can see why they pressed you originally.
Why she's the only one alive when you kind of skip rooms to get to the other two rooms.
Wait.
So
why she was the only one alive? Did you guys just catch that? Why she was the only one alive? Is that why we haven't seen Bethany?
Because the way they were talking to her, and they didn't really understand or believe why she's the only one alive when you kind of skip rooms to get to the other 2 rooms.
Whoa.
So she didn't really like the feel of how the interrogators or the feds were talking to her. And within like a few days after the incident, they approached her with pictures of Brian. I was like, is this the guy? Do you think this is the guy? This is definitely him, right? And they were almost leading her to believe this has to be the person. And she wasn't really sure, but they kind of put those words in her mouth. It's almost like, they were insinuating it so much to where she was like, yeah, I think, no, it's definitely him. And that's when they just kind of like ran with it. So what you see in the affidavit is it didn't play out that way. So Dylan's attorney and her, and actually all of us, are pretty upset at how they threw her under the bus in the affidavit. When's the last time you've seen a witness or like a snitch in a case, their actual names being mentioned? The fact that they didn't redact it. We all think that the feds and prosecutors threw her name in there purposely to apply more pressure, because Dylan was really wishy-washy during the interrogation. And with them, putting these words, set in stone on paper, it kind of puts a lot of pressure on her now, because everyone views her as like some star witness, the star of the case. So that's what we all believe, that she kind of is getting screwed over by, the feds and the prosecutor, because now she has to testify and she has to say kind of what words they put in her mouth instead of what she actually believed, and what she actually knows happened, like with her own words, not words that were like shoved in her mouth.
We get it. We get it.
So yeah, her attorney is pretty upset. She's pretty upset, but at the same time, she knows that, she can be a huge help in this case. So it's not like she's identifying somebody she didn't see. It just didn't play out necessarily like, oh, bushy eyebrows. She saw bushy eyebrows, and was able to 100% identify him, It's just initially when, detectives and feds came in and took over the scene had been contaminated so badly by the local authorities. When they first came, first responders, they stomped all over the place, contaminated the scene. All the, other people that were at the house, they were, walking up and down the steps, to make sure what they're seeing is what they're really seeing. So, I mean, this is a scene that was really badly contaminated. So to equal the playing field, the feds feel like, having a star witness is critical here. But just the way she was being interrogated initially was, it's kind of crazy. It's not what you guys think. They weren't being all sensitive and gentle to her. They were really accusatory and kind of, pressured, put the press on her. Thought that she might have something to do with it, because it just didn't make sense to them why she's the only one alive. And on top of that, didn't see anything or really hear anything. She didn't want to be nosy, didn't want to, get up in her roommate's business. She told him to be quiet. I mean, the last thing that crossed her mind was people are getting slaughtered next door and upstairs, So I think that's pretty much everything I've covered. So yeah, just to go over the whole, suffering trauma. She was shocked that she saw him walk past her. Like, it's not as dramatic as you guys think. Like, he was already halfway towards the kitchen and walking out. And for all of y'all that are scratching your heads, yes, police do lie. They've kind of thrown everybody around the ringer through this whole case from the very start. And you have to think about it. Why would a survivor, a victim, have to hire an attorney? Obviously, they were mistreating her pretty badly as they're interrogating her, and especially now throwing her name in the affidavit like that. That's all because they're pretty upset she hired an attorney to begin with, and because they want to put a lot of pressure on her from the public for her to be the star witness. But aside from that, she's doing good. She's the same old Dylan. Yeah, no, there's no trauma, PTSD, anything. She really feels for, her friends who are deceased, and she does beat herself up a little bit about not being more involved in the situation that night. But realistically, I mean, something like that's not going to cross your mind that something like that's taking place in your house. So yeah, she does feel for the family, and she's really saddened by the whole situation. But as far as her as an individual, she's still the same person. She's not like a traumatized individual, So yeah, I think I pretty much covered everything. And Let's see. Yeah, no, that's everything. Hopefully this video doesn't come off sounding crazy, and clears up a lot of the questions everybody has. All right.
So there you have it.
Okay. Has anybody looked into that guy? That's what I want to know. Because that dude sounds, a little bit like he's got some skin in the game too. Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. Yeah. There was 4 people brutally stabbed, but it was not nearly as dramatic. And shame on the investigators for putting any sort of pressure on her, since she was the only one alive in the house and it was noon when she called. And I have, okay, I want to know if people in the Hive resonate with what I'm about to say, because I understand that we're listening to that and it could be fake. Same thing with Dot, same thing with WSU Kim, same thing with that David dude. But what's so interesting about whenever, or even like Will, right? I think that it's wild how the same people who binge watch Netflix true crime shows or some sort of cold case documentary, and a 40-year-old case is magically solved by some neighbor who randomly like remembers something. Those people that believe that are the first ones in this case to always say fake whenever the script is challenged. Now, I'm not saying that this was legit or sounded legit, but I'm trying to make a point. It has been a common theme in the Idaho 4 when anything that has not been said by Dateline or Amazon or James Patterson or any of these news agencies don't line up with the official script and something challenges that. It's like people are allergic to the facts. Some of the accounts line up with the docs better than the narrative spin, but their brains, like, they short circuit. And it goes back to people would rather continue to go along being played than admit they have been played. People would rather choke on glass than admit they were wrong. So that's what I have to say about that. Sorry, my phone started ringing. I got to turn it on DND. All right. It's Just Me sent me this Hive Mind find. BK showed back up for this one. This is regarding Jonah Chapin. It's United States versus Forsberg. They put a quote in here. We're going to read this article. And has anybody seen this? If you're caught up live right now, type of 1 if you've seen this. Or a 2 if you haven't. Because I was pretty mind blown. I had not seen this. Okay. Maybe a couple of people. This is going to be crazy then if you guys haven't seen this. All right. This came out August 1st of 2024. And It's Just Me had submitted this for a Hive Mind find. It's regarding Jonah Chapin. They took a quote excerpt out of this, and it says, following the sale, Forsberg left the area driving a green Ford Explorer. Given the presence of a firearm and menacing conduct, law enforcement activated their emergency lights and sirens in an attempt to stop Forsberg's vehicle in Airway Heights. Forsberg failed to yield and ultimately fled, driving recklessly to escape. Forsberg was subsequently federally indicted and a warrant issued for his arrest. Now, let's read this, shall we? Released July 24th. 2024, rather. Serial offender sentenced to federal prison on drug trafficking charges. Yeah, thanks, Don. Thanks, Don. I want everybody to listen to this. This is Spokane, Washington. Vanessa Waldreff, United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Washington, announced that Gage Lyle Forsberg, age 30, was sentenced after pleading guilty to distribution of 40 grams or more of a mixture or substance containing a detectable amount of fentanyl. United States District Judge Thomas O'Rice imposed a sentence of 175 months and 6 days imprisonment, followed by 5 years of supervised release. In imposing this lengthy sentence, Judge Rice considered Forsberg's extensive criminal history as well as the string of crimes Forsberg engaged in that ultimately resulted in this federal indictment. According to court documents and information presented at the sentencing hearing on October 21st, 2021, the Spokane Police Department conducted a traffic stop on a vehicle driven by Forsberg for reckless driving. Forsberg was arrested. During a search, SPD located $1,120 on Forsberg, as well as drug paraphernalia and 9 Fetty pills in the vehicle. Forsberg was booked into jail and ultimately released. While that case was pending, on February 4th, 2022, SPD spotted Forsberg driving a stolen vehicle with a smashed out window. SPD arrested Forsberg, and during a search, SPD located a baggie of Fetty pills, cash, and a loaded magazine for a handgun. Inside the vehicle, SPD located a loaded 9mm firearm with a serial number ground off, a 10mm firearm that had been reported stolen, several boxes of ammo, as well as loose rounds of ammo, multiple knives, and more than $22,000, 5 baseball-sized bags of Fetty pills, and a bag containing H. SPD also located a glass punch, which is used to break vehicle windows. Forsberg was booked into jail and ultimately released. God damn. A few days later, on February 20th, 2022, a 911 caller reported Forsberg had a weapon and was trying to start a fight at a location in Spokane. A witness saw Forsberg was armed and yelled, "Gun!" to alert others. Forsberg took a gun out of his pants and threw it into the street. A bystander retrieved the gun and rendered it safe. When SPD arrived, Forsberg was contacted and arrested. During a search incident to arrest, SPD located $2,900, Suboxone strips, a baggie containing Fetty, and a 9mm magazine. The firearm Forsberg tossed in the street was a 9mm pistol. Forsberg was booked into jail and ultimately released. Yeah, that's right. On October 26th of 2022, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, aka the ATF, arranged a controlled buy. Okay, so listen in here. So this is clearly a sting. The ATF arranged a controlled buy of approximately 700 Fetty pills from Forsberg using an undercover agent. Forsberg had 2 other individuals with him, co-defendants Jonah Chapin and Brady Towner. While the undercover agent was negotiating the sale with Forsberg, Towner brandished a gun and moved to a position of advantage behind the undercover agent. Seeing this, surveillance units gave the signal to call off the deal, and the undercover agent walked away. Forsberg then followed the agent and insisted on the sale, which they completed. Following the sale, Forsberg left the area driving a green Ford Explorer. Given the presence of a firearm and menacing conduct, law enforcement activated their emergency lights and sirens in an attempt to stop Forsberg's vehicle in Airway Heights. Forsberg failed to yield and ultimately fled, driving recklessly to escape. Forsberg was subsequently federally indicted and a warrant issued for his arrest. On November 15th, 2022, November 15th, 2022, ATF saw Forsberg driving a vehicle in the Spokane area. ATF attempted to contact the vehicle However, the vehicle attempted to flee. The vehicle was boxed in by ATF vehicles and stopped. The occupants of the vehicle were not compliant with commands, and the vehicle's windows were heavily tinted, which prevented ATF from initially seeing what was happening in the vehicle and raised safety concerns given the conduct during the October encounter. Forsberg, Chapin, and Forsberg's then girlfriend, Eva Marie Miller, were ultimately removed from the vehicle and detained. During a search of the vehicle, agents seized bags containing large quantities of Fetty pills and approximately $20,000 in Forsberg's backpack, 2 loaded handguns, to include one readily accessible in the driver's door panel, box ammunition, several cell phone, drug ledgers, and a small amount of methamphetamine. There were also many loose Fetty pills strewn throughout the vehicle, as if a large bag of Fetty pills was carelessly ripped open. Chapin was found to have approximately 100 Fetty pills in a fake battery on his person, as well as brass knuckles. Forsberg's co-defendants were previously sentenced for their respective roles in Forsberg's activities. Chapin was sentenced to 40 months in prison. Towner was sentenced to 84 months in prison, and Miller was sentenced to 36 months in prison. Mr. Forsberg showed a willful disregard for the law and the safety of our communities by repeatedly engaging in drug trafficking, recklessly attempting to elude law enforcement, illegally possessing stolen firearms, and vehicle theft, stated U.S. Attorney Waldreff. And members of my office come to work every day to make Eastern Washington safe for everyone. We accomplish that by working hand in hand with our law enforcement partners to hold individuals accountable who engage in dangerous conduct and repeatedly flout the rule of the law. Guns and drugs are a losing combination, particularly when used together in the commission of a crime, said ATF Seattle Special Agent in charge, Jonathan Blaise. Mr. Forsberg knew what he was doing was wrong, then exacerbated it by fleeing from the law enforcement twice. He certainly earned this justified sentence. This case was investigated by the ATF, the DEA, the Moses Lake Police Department, and the Spokane Police Department. It was prosecuted by the Assistant United States Attorney General, Caitlin Bonsgard. That's pretty crazy. Now, if you take nothing else away from it, it's that there's clearly a shit ton of drugs and crime going on. How he was able to walk away from all of that, I have no idea. Now, there's a lot of people that are asking, who is Jonah? The last name is obviously the same. Has anybody heard? I mean, has anybody heard? I don't know. It could be a cousin. It could be whatever. I'm not even claiming that. I'm just saying it's odd, too, that that name is the same. It doesn't sound like a very, common name. Maybe it could be. That's true. Some people are saying not related. Is there anybody that has gone and looked it up, at least officially, and not just question that? That is the beauty of the Hive and why I decided to put this on the Hive Mind Find. Yeah, the Chapin in this document went to jail for 40 months. But yeah, that's exactly right, Betty. Washington's truly different. They're built different. All right. Well, I guess let's just see. Jonah Chapin, Washington. I don't know. Now, that would be some shit. That would be wild, J. Ray. People are saying he's biological. God, this is what I just want to know. Like, people are saying I couldn't find a tie. It's like, and I'm not saying you did this just because I happen to have KS, Jess, and Art's comment in front of me. So I'm not saying this to you, but I'm like, is it Facebook search you're saying you can't find a tie? Or, you know what I'm saying? Uncle Daddy Brother said, I found an obituary for Joseph Alexander Chapin, passed away September 7th, 2023, that mentions he's survived by sons, including both Ethan Chapin and Jonah Chapin. Okay, this is crazy. Are they quadruplets? Or is one of them really like a half brother, but they were all young enough, so they just call them triplets? Like, what? People are wanting me to put this back up on screen. Again, Hive, we're thinking through it. We're logically bridge building. I would say type of 1, if you at least can say this is interesting enough to see if there's some sort of family relation. Given the timing, this was November 15th of that same year. XO Pink Stinger XO. Thank you for all your hard work, Birdie, because innocent people do take guilty pleas. That's right. That's right. I saw your comment earlier, and I made sure I got back to that one. Thank you for tuning in, being part of the Hive. So, Wicca, where can you like drop something in the chat on what I can pull up? This has inadvertently turned into a live dig section of this stream, but now I can't get my brain off of it, and I don't want to leave everybody hanging. That court document was just oddly weird with the time, the name. Jonah Gregory Chapin. The defendant is hereby committed to the custody of the United States Bureau of Prisons for a total of 40 months. Hunter Wicca blank shady. I agree, Candy. People are saying Ethan, Hunter, and Maisie. All three, Ethan, Maisie, and Hunter, are the triplets. I'm confused too, Aurora Moon. You did using Copilot. So this dude was 30. No. Was this dude 30 or was Forsberg 30? Forsberg was 30. Does it have dude's name or his birthday here? Yes. And the green Explorer or the black Explorer, dark green. People are saying Hunter's half brother. His middle name is Jonah Gregory Chapin. No kidding, right? Curious Cat. That would be some shit. God, this is when the Hive thrives. Not to sound like Dr. Seuss there, but like, look at this chat is the best. It's interesting. There's people that are just like, hang on, wait, what? And then there's some people that are like, no, I'm looking into it. And it's actually, we have a rather large collective of people right now that are all digging into the same thing. And wait, no, Wicca, you can't say that. You were the one that was driving this. How are you confused? I'm just giving you shit. Well, and I'm trying to keep my eyes on both the chat right now and I'm Googling. Wait, hang on. Before I do this, am I allowed to pull up someone's Facebook? That might be a dumb question. Can I do that on stream? Or is that wrong? That's probably a really stupid question, but I just want to double check because I'm. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad that I just thought of that. Yeah, I'm not going to. But anyways, these are court cases. Look at Ethan's obituary. Well, you got Maisie and Hunter. Listen to how this. Wait. Ethan is survived by his dad, Jim, his mom, Stacy, and surviving triplets, Maisie and Hunter. Is that a phrase of speech that you would still say surviving triplets? Is that how it would be worded? Now I'm going back through the chat. Discord Don said, check my email. Oh, buckle up, Hive. Buckle up. All right. So Dawn had ChatGPT'd an obituary for Joseph Alexander Chapin lists Jonah Chapin as one of his sons, along with an Ethan Chapin. However, there's no. Well, I would go ahead and say after seeing this, there is absolutely, most likely, not a relationship. But nonetheless, that was crazy. That article is crazy. That was interesting to dive into. And speaking of crazy and interesting, but actually, before I move on, see that again. That's okay that we're thinking that, and it's not. I don't know. I mean, it's not that I even expected there to be said connection. It just had the same last name in the same area with drugs and arrest right after all of that shit went down. I think a normal person would think, holy shit, I'd be curious if this is related, right? So, that's one thing that does bother me when people are like, look at they're a conspiracy channel. They're trying to find this Chapin related to that Chapin. They're not even related. It's like, no shit. We weren't saying that they 100% were. We just said it'd be wild if they were. It's called research. It's called looking into it. Yes, exactly. Shout out to the Mitty Woody. We hedge forth. Yeah, me too. Me too. Exactly. Okay. Wicca, I'm gonna give you the top dog for the solid effort just in typing out the comments while looking all that up. The backpack with the money was a little bit odd. I think my ears perked up when I heard that. But yes, deductive reasoning. Absolutely. The Hive is alive. The think tank Hive. Look at this. This is so cool to read right now. And I hope everybody in here feels like they are a part of this Hive, because without you all, it wouldn't be the Hive. This is great. Yes, it was a nothing burger, but now we know. I agree. Chrissy said Wilma derailed us. It's Wicca, Chrissy. Participation trophy. That's right. That's all we can give ourselves, right? We'll give ourselves top dog for top participators in that. That goes out to the Hive. Oh man, that's funny. Oh, autocorrect. Oh, it was autocorrect, huh, Chrissy? Oh, that's hilarious. That is funny. All right. Well, this is crazy. Some people may know this tinfoil hat conspiracy of the day. Others may not. If you have nothing to do after this stream, there's a documentary on Netflix that I'm going to tell you to go watch, that if you've not seen, and it's a documentary that is an unbelievably told story. It's a perfect, like, I would even say, like, if your kids are a little bit older, it's super interesting. Definitely one to watch with their significant other, as both of you, if you have open minds, or sounds like there's a decent amount of couples that tune in and families that tune in. This would be a good watch for you all. Has anybody heard of the Russian state-sponsored doping? And by doping, I mean Putin was literally sponsoring to juice up his athletes in the Sochi Olympics, to the point where their special forces were involved and they had a false outlet in the wall to pass dirty urine through and receive clean urine, so that all of the Russian athletes would test clean while they were all doping up. It's called Icarus. Icarus. It is unbelievable. I don't want to spoil it, but it's crazy because this guy just stumbles into this. He's doing a completely different documentary about something way different, and then he stumbles into this and uncovers this. It is crazy. And so I had an entire thing that I was going to say about this, but now I'm curious. If you're going to look up Icarus, type a 1. I don't want to ruin it for you. You should be able to find Icarus probably just online. Because like I said, if there's, I feel like a lot of people are probably going to want to go watch it. Okay. I don't know if it's just on Netflix. You might be able to find it almost on any streaming platform. It went mega viral. But yeah, so I could switch gears though, because I thought that this was going to happen. There's obviously a lot of people that are going to look into it. This is hilarious. So I'll tell a different story about it, but it's kind of like, you know how I kind of always think like strong Russian women. Like, whenever I think of this story, the Russians dominated the weightlifting category. They dominated the Sochi Olympics. And it all makes sense when you think about the fact that Putin was funding the roids, but when I played college football, we got a new strength and conditioning coach. And if you've ever played a sport, it doesn't just have to be football, but if you played a sport where, you're going to do sport specific training and like platform lifts, deadlift, hang clean, power clean, overhead press, you're in a squat rack, all that stuff. Most times, outside of doing a 1 rep, like what's your max out, what's your top weight you can lift, maybe every couple of months to test your gains and progress. Most times you're doing like 3 sets of 8, 4 sets of 5, 6 sets of 3. You guys get the point. Well, we had this guy who came in and he did his entire thesis on how the Russians are winning all of the Olympics, why the Russians lifting team is undefeated. And he came in with this Russian lifting program. And I think back and I'm like, all of that information, it doesn't apply probably to college football players that aren't on the gas. We were doing 1 set. You want to know our workout routine? It was 1 set of 14. You would bench 1 set of 14, and it'd be the heaviest weight you could do. You would squat 1 set of 14, heaviest set you could do. There'd be a bunch of auxiliary lifts, like you would then go on to dumbbells, and you do dumbbell bench press. You would do an absurd amount of like glute ham back raises with weight. But here's the thing. If you could do 14 reps of that weight, the next time that you did it, and you did it every other day, so you did it on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the next time that you would go do those 14 reps, you would add 5 pounds each side. And you would do that for as many reps as you could until you could hit 14. Now, yes, people got stronger. Okay. Where I went to college, there were some dudes that were back squatting 405 for 14. And I thought to myself, that has got to be so unsafe. But it makes sense why this coach thought it was all going to work when you think about all of the Russian athletes were on steroids. Anyways, watch Icarus. You guys probably get the gist of what I'm saying, but it was a huge conspiracy. The KGB wouldn't be working to rig the Olympics in Sochi so Russia looked phenomenal on their home turf after their entire Olympic village was at least reported that it was not finished and flooding. They wouldn't do that. See, but this I could believe. I could believe the Russians are wrestling and training with bears. I feel like I've seen Khabib do that. I know he's not exactly Russian, but you guys get my point. But I'm not going to ruin it. And with that, Hive, I hope that you all enjoyed that stream. That was a lot of fun. That was probably one of the most fun streams that I have had hosting in quite some time. I will be back on tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Central. I have a surprise guest next week. Maybe 2 surprise guests throughout the next 2 weeks, both that you guys are going to really enjoy having on the stream. So with that being said, just remember that people who haven't followed this case, there's no hope for them. There is no hope for them. It's impossible to explain, which I would argue is the entire goal of what the media was doing. But that is the benefit of the narrative versus the evidence, and it has succeeded without a doubt. So, Hive, I hope you all have a great night. Sleep good. Enjoy Icarus. Make some popcorn. Put your feet up. Also, side note, speaking of putting your feet up, it's like a dual lacrosse ball, rolling your feet out. If you guys aren't rolling your feet out every day, start doing it. Start doing it. There's so many benefits to doing barefoot walks, and I don't know what's making me go off on a tangent about this. Very random. Roll your feet out, touch some grass with your feet, ground a little bit. I've actually heard a conspiracy that the word tree hugger was demonized because the roots actually go deep into the earth. They go deeper down into the soil, and if you lean against a tree and you're sitting barefoot on the ground, the Earth's energy is actually extremely powerful. Like a tree would almost be looked at as an antenna. So hence they said, what are you, a tree hugger? And a lot of people deemed that to do with deforestation, but it actually started way before deforestation became mainstream. So that's a fun fact for y'all too. Nonetheless, now for the third time, Hive, cheers. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life.